Okay, so thank you very much for coming along this afternoon, and indeed for coming at all today. We always enjoy these events, and hopefully you're doing the same as well. So this afternoon, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the thorny subject of capacity planning. What we'll cover in this session, first of all, what is planning? Secondly, the types of planning that there are, both the theory and also the practice. And we'll finish off with what you can achieve today and also in the future with priority. Manufacturing planning, it's the facility to visualize future manufacturing activities that will require the use of specific resources. To make a product, at the end of the day, you need people, you need machines, you need materials. Okay? More specifically, and this is quite important, you need people who aren't busy doing something else. We need machines that aren't doing something else either, and we need materials to be in the right place at the right time. Just having the materials somewhere but not in the right place is no good. What planning is not. Okay, it's not a manufacturing execution system. Okay, we need to make this distinction between planning and execution. Okay, planning is literally planning. You're forecasting what's going to be happening into the future. Execution is about what's happening right now, and if I've got a problem, what am I going to do right now in order to get over that problem? Okay. And it's also not a crystal ball, okay? It's got to rely on the data that you're putting into the system, okay? If you're not putting enough data into the system, don't expect it to come up with all the right answers for you. So the types of planning that there are, and I'm sure this is not an exhaustive list, but basically these, as far as I believe, are the main ones. Material requirements planning, what people call MRP. Okay, invented many, I don't know, 25, 30 years ago. The fundamental aspects of MRP is, first of all, it's backwards planning. So you're starting off with a customer due date and saying, when do I need to start in order to satisfy that customer due date? Okay, so it's starting on the due date and working backwards and telling you when you need to start. It's also infinite capacity as well. So in other words, it's assuming that you're going to be able to do everything and that you're not going to have any bottlenecks anywhere. Manufacturing resource planning, or MRP2, came after MRP and was seen to be an extension of it. Also, you've got advanced planning and scheduling, which is a slightly different variation of it. What this brings is the ability to do forwards and backwards planning. Okay, so you can, and because of the second point, which is the finite capacity, it enables you to say, right, I can't do anything before today, so therefore I'm going to start planning from today onwards and go forwards. Okay. Now, of course, what that means, if you think about MRP and going backwards, with MRP, you can, if you start with the customer due date and work backwards, you could, of course, be in the situation where you say, or where the system tells you, oh, you should have started 3 weeks ago. Okay. Now, of course. Now, of course, with forwards planning, you get a slightly different issue, okay? You start planning from today, and then you find out that you're not going to be able to satisfy the customer's due date that your sales team have promised, okay? So, you know, there's, it depends on how you want to, what sort of problem do you want, okay? The other thing with MRP2 and also advanced planning and scheduling is that it incorporates lots of different factors. Okay, so things like setups and how many different setups on a machine you can do together or one after the other, and how long they're going to take. What products could you actually manufacture at the same time on the same machine? Because it may be a multi-axis CNC machine or whatever that can do lots of different jobs all at the same time. How many different jobs can you do at the same time? What batch numbers have to go through those machines in order to utilize them as efficiently as possible. And the third one I've got here, of course, is manual. You know, people without an ERP system or an MRP system, they can still do manufacturing planning, and lots of people have invented their own Excel spreadsheets to do so. Okay. One of the beauties of this, of course, is that you can get that system to do exactly or whatever you want, okay? Because there are no rules in it. You make up the rules by putting different formulas, etc., within your Excel spreadsheet. There's no real automation within an Excel spreadsheet like that, and of course there is always the single user issue that you get whenever you're doing anything with spreadsheets. So, moving on, planning in priority. Okay, so first of all, we've got good old MRP. The inputs that you can put into MRP, so sales orders and demand forecasts. So this is where your demand is coming from. The inventory levels for products and materials, okay? Some people stock their end products ready to be delivered to their customers whenever those customers put their orders in. Other people don't stock products at all. Okay? And again, the same with raw materials. Some people like to keep lots of stocks of raw materials in order to be able to make their products whenever they want. Other people say, no, our lead times are quick enough in order to satisfy customer demand quickly enough just by making according to orders. And of course, existing purchases of materials and existing work orders. Okay? Because again, you've got parameters within priority and any MRP system that allows you to do things like overproducing. So you might have minimum order levels or minimum work order levels or minimum purchase order levels. So even though you might have a demand from a customer for 10 products, you don't have any on the shelf, so you've got to make them with a work order. But if you've got a minimum order quantity on your work order of 100, you're going to make 100 of them. Okay. The outputs of this are many. First of all, work orders are created. So in other words, the whole idea behind planning is that you're working out what you have to manufacture. So the work orders have to be created in order to give instructions to people in order to do those work orders. Purchase demands, or in brackets requisitions, and again this is a little bit of priority terminology, are also created. So this is recommendations for people in purchasing to go out and buy the raw materials that are going to be required to manufacture those products. To specific outputs, a Gantt chart which tells you when those work orders have to be done and what operations on what work cells, etc. And we'll be looking at examples of these in a moment. And other work order reports. So again, lists of instructions to specific people in specific work cells to do specific operations at particular times. But importantly, with priority, you do also get some capacity reports as well. So even though MRP is planning infinitely, so it doesn't have a particular constraints within the resource levels of the work cells, it does tell you what needs to be done and when, and whether those work cells are going to be under-resourced. So looking at some examples, inputs. So input parameters, routings, operations, work cells. So as you can see here, we've got some operations in a routing. So we've got a routing here, which I've called chassis manufacture, and it's got a number of operations: CNC machine, assemble, sort, bath, braze, etc., etc. Could be whatever you want, and each of these are taking place within a specific work cell. Okay. It is also telling you how long it takes to do these operations. Okay, so this first one, the CNC machine, you can see it says it's going to take an hour to do a CNC machine on one product. Okay, now these numbers obviously you can use for whatever you like. I could have put it takes 2 hours to do 2. It means exactly the same thing. Okay, but you can use those numbers to determine how long it's going to take for that operation for one item, effectively, one product for that operation. One useful aspect in this, of course, is the fact that this column here, this tick box here, you can't see the title, but it says MRP time per batch. That handles the situation where you've got operations that are not specifically linked to specific items. So for instance, if you've got a drying or a curing operation, okay, so let's say you paint something and you need it to dry, okay, it takes you, let's say 2 hours to dry one item, but it also takes 2 hours to dry 10 items. Okay, so that tick box is helpful in modeling that particular example. We also have MRP parameters, which are identified against specific parts. So again, you can see this product, which is a chassis plate, and you can see some of the parameters that we've got in here. So you've got safety stock. So this is how much the system will ensure you have at all times. So the moment at which the planning engine decides that that number is going to go below, in this case 50, then it will automatically generate some form of work order in order to ensure that figure is not breached. Minimums for work orders and also for purchase orders. So this parameter form is both for raw materials and for products. Okay, so minimum for order stroke work order. That is, for purchase orders, it's a minimum order quantity, and for work orders, it's a minimum work order quantity. Okay. And then 2 below that, you've got increment for purchase order or work order. So if, for instance, you have, in this situation, minimum for work order of 10 and an increment of 10, that means that if you have a requirement for 5, it will produce a work order for 10. If you have a requirement for 15, it will produce a work order for 20. Okay. Maximum for work order, that's also a useful feature in here, because that ensures that you don't clog up your manufacturing resource with one particular work order. Okay, so if that, so if you had a requirement for 100,000 products, and that was going to take you 6 months to do that, you won't necessarily want your shop floor to be tied up for 6 months just producing one order. Okay, so it then splits it down into smaller orders in order to allow other stuff to be made in between. And then you've got demand range. Again, both for purchase orders and for work orders. And this is the grouping capability within Priority to make sure that the same item required for 2 different requirements can be either made in the same work order or purchased on the same purchase order. Okay, so here I've got an example. I've got 7. So that means that if you've got 2 manufacturing demands for the same item within 7 days of each other, the system will put them together onto a single work order and then produce those as a single work order, so long as you don't violate some of these other numbers. Yes, Martin.
that demand range is nice. So if I have one order on a Wednesday
Yep.
and another one due the following Tuesday,
Yep.
and a 7-day range,
Yep.
it lumps them all together.
Yep.
Is there a way to say, no, it's not 7 days from the Wednesday of the first order, I want it in weekly buckets. So I'm going to aggregate everything up that's in the same week number, as opposed to randomly any 7-day stock.
I don't know. Short answer, I don't know. I believe we can do it, but it's, yeah, I don't, off the top of my, yeah, if you will. And you've broken Mayer's first rule. You've asked a question.
Yes.
But I won't tell you. Okay. Other parameters then, when you're running MRP, you need to put parameters in to say how you want the MRP run to happen. So we've got a variety of different parameters to put in here. The date in the future up to which you want to plan. Whether you want to open work orders or not, open the work orders up to a certain date in the future, how you want to combine work orders together, how you're going to create issues for each of the material issues for each of these work orders, etc., and more here as well. So, do you want to run purchase planning or not? Okay, so MRP has also got another program, purchase planning, which follows on immediately afterwards. So all of the work orders produce obviously a list of issues that are required for those work orders, and then purchase planning comes along and says, okay, do we have these in stock, or do we have to go out and purchase them? Okay. Okay. So looking now at some of the outputs, and by the way, that's, if I go back to that point there, if you're running MRP automatically overnight, then then what you do is you set up these parameters beforehand, and then every time MRP runs, it will run according to those parameters. So, material requirements planning, the work orders that are created. So here you can see a part of a report that is showing, in this case, it's a work plan for a particular period. So the end of December to, that's interesting. I think it's got its dates the wrong way around, but let's not worry about that. For a particular period, and obviously it's breaking it down by individual work cell, so you can see within each work cell what is required to be done, and obviously the timings and the durations, etc., for each of those operations within each of those work cells. Okay, and again, this obviously can be broken down so that you can give a list to each individual work cell or work cell leader, etc.
Can I ask a question on that?
Go on.
The problem we're finding, and you'll probably say that there's some point we haven't pressed it. The problem we're finding is that we have operations that overlap, i.e. a works order for 1,000.
Yep.
Once we have done the first operation for, say, 100,
yep.
It then go through to the next operation, so they overlap.
Right.
The way it currently is on priority is it puts the one up against the other.
Right.
So it makes an elongated period of time, but the reality is we could do a works order in a week.
Right.
The priority might say it takes a month, and consequently we're ordering material too early.
Right.
So can we overlap our operations?
Yes, you can, but we'll have a chat afterwards about it. All right. Right. So, and just looking at that in a little bit more detail, so you can see I've just blown up a couple of lines on here, so you can see we've got the work order, the part number, the description, the operation description, planned start date, planned end date, therefore how long, how many hours it's going to take, obviously the quantities being made, the unit, and also a unique lot number as well. Another major output is of MRP is purchase demands. So, and as I said, after purchase demands, brackets requisitions, because that's effectively what most people recognise those to be. And again, this is one of many reports. There are many reports on the system that show you information about this. In this particular one, this is looking at purchase order recommendations. So what purchase orders need to be created, but also for your existing purchase orders that are covering these materials, what do you want to do with them? Okay, because having run MRP again, the situation may well have changed and your purchase orders may be either redundant or you need to change the timing of them. Okay, so if we come in here, we can see, again, just blown up a couple of lines. There's a recommendation here, which is saying on this particular line, you actually don't need this material now, so we suggest you cancel the purchase order. And the other one says reduce that particular purchase order by 10. Okay. There are other recommendations that come in, like push it out, push it in, pull it in, or whatever. Whether you can actually do those recommendations is, of course, a different matter. This is one of the major outputs that most people think of that comes out of MRP, and this is the Gantt chart, and this is showing you the duration of each of the individual operations for, in this particular case, this is just one work order. So down the left-hand side, you've got the work cells that those operations are taking place in, and obviously the length of the bar tells you how long it's going to take. And you can see the greyed areas are those non-productive times. Okay, so there is a calendar behind this, a calendar for every single work cell, which determines when the normal working and idle times are. One of the things that you can do with this, of course, is that having got MRP to generate this, you do have the ability of manually changing it as well. Okay, so you can actually drag and drop any of these bars on here, either forwards and backwards because the timing is different for some reason. And this is where this whole concept of not trying to plan to the nth degree. Okay, there will always be stuff that goes on that the system will never know about. Okay, so somebody might go off sick at a very short notice or whatever. And so there's always, you need the ability to be able to move things manually. What the system will then do is, having moved one of these bars, it will then replan on the fly anything that's dependent upon it. Okay, so if I was to drag this one over to here, this one would then also move as well. Okay, if I move this one over to here, all of them would move. Okay. Now, of course, you can say, yeah, that's a lovely MRP Gantt chart, isn't it? Because it's only got one work order on it. Real life, of course, is never like that. And this is always one of the downfalls of something like a Gantt chart like this. Visibility is really good until you get the whole thing completely full. And then it becomes a bit of a nightmare to try and manage it. But hey-ho. And this is where you can get some information about capacity. So here we can see this is a period loads per work cell. And this is looking at each individual work cell for a particular period. In this particular case, it is being done by individual day. Okay, so I've got it down to a single day for each of these lines. And this is telling you what the job time is for that particular work cell, for that particular time scale, what the idle time is, and therefore what the percentage workload is. Now, the important thing here, you can't see it on here because I've only got quite a lightly loaded scenario here. We do have 100% here for this work cell on that one day, but those numbers can go over 100. Okay, so if you have overloaded your work cells, it will show on this report. Okay. You then obviously got the management decision as to what you're going to do about it. Okay, priority won't tell you that. Okay, priority will tell you the facts. You then need to use those facts in getting some management decisions to decide what you're going to do about it. So if you've got a work cell that's overloaded more than 100%, variety of things that you can do. You can move some of the other operations around. You can put on a night shift or some overtime or whatever it is. So you either reduce the amount of work going on at that time, or you expand the amount of resource in order to be able to deal with it. And again, that's just a blown up version of that. Okay. So that was MRP. We, of course, have spoken to lots of customers over the years who have said, yeah, MRP is all very well, but we want to get some capacity in here as well. Okay, so Priority no longer has an inbuilt finite capacity scheduling engine. It did used to many years ago, but Priority, in their wisdom, decided to drop it. So, as far as native Priority is concerned, MRP is the planning engine. Okay. At Meditech, we decided this wasn't good enough. Okay, so we wanted to give our customers something of what they were asking us for. So we started this by, first of all, creating what we call the Meditech Capacity Calendar. So the inputs to this are a normal MRP run. Okay, so a normal MRP run will produce the work orders, or obviously you can generate the work orders manually if you wish. The advantages of this is that it shows where operations are on track or overdue using red, amber, green coloration. It allows the reporting of production directly on the Gantt chart. Okay, so you can, not only can you get the information from the Gantt chart of what you're supposed to do, but equally on that same screen you can actually say, right, I have reported on that particular operation. It allows the setting of work cell capacities with exceptions. Okay, so this is where the capacity can come in, and provides a capacity view of each individual work cell. So here's just a few screenshots of what it can do. So here you can see the red, amber, green. So green is it's on track or hasn't been started. Red means obviously we've got a bit of an issue here, and amber means it's ongoing, but we don't have an issue at this point. Exactly like the ordinary MRP Gantt chart, you have the ability of clicking on any one of the bars on here, doing a right click and seeing what the details of that are. So we can see this is a work order for a particular part number, particular operation, lot number, start and end times and dates, etc. And this is the reporting. So again, doing a right click on any one of these bars will allow you to report the fact that you have done work on this specific operation as you go. And not only that, you can also identify any defect codes for any items that you've had to report you've scrapped. I mentioned about work cell capacity, so here we are. We've got work cells down the left-hand side, we've got days across the top, and then you can just identify the number of hours of work that are, of resource that are available.
Normal calendar for work cell. It's obviously your thing, but
yes,
I thought
yeah. We have with lots of things that we do. We try wherever we can to use standard functionality, and standard screens are already there. So yes, so that subform I think you'll find is already there.
Okay.
And here we've got a capacity view. So I don't know if I've got no, I haven't. Okay, I can't blow this up unfortunately, but down here within each of these bars, this is telling you the available number of man hours and the actual demand of man hours. So you can see on most of these that they're green because the first number is larger than the second number, but not for this one. We've got more demand required than that particular work cell. So other things, how else you can do capacity planning in Priority? Since native priority no longer has a capacity planner in it, that means priority had to find one. Okay, so they've teamed up with Planet, which is a finite capacity scheduler. It's all fully integrated into Priority already. Okay, so if you decide you want to use Planet, you can purchase it from us, and we'll install it, and it will be pre-configured and integrated with Priority. Again, inputs can come from either work orders or sales orders. Okay, so you don't have to do planning on MRP first. You can go straight to Planet with your sales orders, and it will plan from there. Some of the advantages over standard MRP, quite clearly, full finite capacity planning. Variety of views. So this obviously, Planet is a product in itself, and so it's got a lot of unique development within it. So it has list views, customer views, as well as a Gantt chart, and you can combine those views as well. And again, I'll show you screenshots of these, and machine capacities. And of course, it being a finite capacity scheduler, it has the capability for you to define particular rules as to set up combinations and what products can be made on the same machine, etc., etc. So this is the normal Gantt chart view of the Planet capacity scheduler. It looks like an ordinary MRP Gantt chart, really. Okay, very, very similar. So it's just showing blocks of where a particular operation is required on a particular work cell, with obviously dates across the top. I mentioned that there's more than one view. You also have a list view here. Some people like to see things in lists rather than pretty pictures. So a lot of people will use a view like this in order to help them to manage their workloads. And you also have a customer view as well. So right down the left-hand side, you've got the customer first, and then you've got the orders for those specific customers, and then obviously you've got the view of the operations that are taking place for those work orders. And I mentioned you can have a combined view. So on the right-hand side, we've got the ordinary Gantt chart, and on the left-hand side, we've got the list view. Okay, machine capacities. It's a little bit difficult to see here, but some of these little circles have got a green sector in them, which is showing the amount of the capacity of each of these particular machines. So the other thing that Planet is also doing here, as you can see, is first of all it's identifying work cells, but also identifying the fact you can have different machines, a number of different machines within those work cells, and they are uniquely identified, as you can see here. Okay, so a little bit about future capabilities. So there's a couple of things here. First of all, what Priority Software are doing. So they wanted to add an available to promise capability. Now, the question is, what most people will ask is, how on earth can you do available to promise with backward planning? Just doesn't make sense, okay? But what they've done here is they've identified that if you do an MRP plan, you will have a plan in front of you, and then when the customer comes along and says, I want to place an order, then you can put that order into the MRP plan. Okay, and you can then forward plan that and see whether you can actually make that in time according to the customer requirement. Okay, so you have a static MRP plan that's already been planned, and then you're putting another order or number of orders in and forward planning those to see when you're going to be able to deliver them. Okay, so it's a little bit of forward and backward planning. This is a new feature, by the way, in version 22.1. Okay, so it has been released. I haven't tried it yet. We haven't actually got our hands on 22.1 yet, but we will be in the next few weeks. Okay. And the other aspect as well is what we're doing at Meditech. Again, we're always looking to see how we can satisfy our customer requirements where we can, and we are looking at a simple capacity planning engine that we can create. Okay, we've already put a task force together. They're already meeting and trying to thrash out the outline rules for this. Okay, but what we want to do is provide something simple and easy to use, because one of the big aspects about capacity planning is that it's all very well saying, oh yes, I want to do capacity planning, but actually it takes a lot of human resource to do it. Okay, MRP is nice and simple and nice and easy to use, so therefore you don't need a lot of resource just to do the planning. Okay, with capacity planning, that goes out the window. Okay, you will need a lot more resource normally in order to do capacity planning than you would on ordinary MRP. So just a quick summary of the current capabilities. Left-hand side, you can see we've got the different tools that are available, and we've got some of the advantages and disadvantages. So MRP, simple to use, many parameters are available, but there are no capacity constraints. The capacity calendar that we've generated in Meditech, simple to use. There is an element of capacity planning in there. You can do in-chart production reporting, which is a very interesting feature, but it's got limited input parameters, and at the end of the day, it is a more manual process than you get with just straight MRP. And then with Planet capacity scheduling, you get the full capacity scheduling, but again, there's a lot of training required in order to make it work the way you want it to work, and there is a very significant planning effort that's required just to get the plan out. Okay, that's me done, I think. I'm on time as well.